official, Barry Jennings, died right before the NIST report came out. Dr. David M. Graham of Shreveport, a 9/11 whistleblower, died right before his book was published.
You consider yourself a conspiracy theorist?
That is a loaded question, Chris, because the word conspiracy theorist tends to mean discredited wacko. I consider myself a scientist and a historian. I would not base any of this 9/11...
Scientist and historian, I thought you were a musician.
I am an author and a researcher. I rely on science and history in my work on 9/11.
To put it another way, you don't like the term conspiracy theorist.
Well, it is a loaded term. It is a pejorative term in our culture, especially since the Oliver Stone film about JFK.
Do you think you're on the lunatic fringe?
No, I think I'm in the mainstream. The mainstream of America rejects the Bush-Cheney agenda of illegal war, torture, and cover-up.
Do you think the mainstream of America believes that the government, the U.S. government, murdered our own citizens?
I would go back and scientifically look at 2006 polls, Ohio University, Scripps Howard, New York Times, CBS polls. These polls showed a disturbing amount of public opinion was being won over by a grassroots 9/11 truth movement that is outside of the political establishment of the Democrats and Republicans, and yet is growing its grassroots and is really beginning to affect change in this country.
So let me ask that again. Do you think that mainstream America, or a majority of Americans, believes that the U.S. government murdered its own citizens on 9/11?
If you look at those 2006 polls, the answer is yes. A growing majority of people have questions about the Bush-Cheney 9/11 official story. The 9/11 Commission itself now, their lawyer, John Farmer, just did a book called The Ground Truth, in which he says that the 9/11 Commission was a lie. So when the 9/11 Commission heads, Lee Hamilton and Thomas Kean, come out and say that in their book that we were not, that our report was a sham, that the 9/11 Commission was...
Wait a minute. When did Congressman Hamilton say his report was a sham?
You should see his book. His book just came out.
Wait, Lee Hamilton said this?
Lee Hamilton said that we were stonewalled by the White House. We were not given the full truth. I mean, if you really know the 9/11 Commission, and I've reviewed the 9/11 Commission report for the New York Press, the 9/11 Commission was led by Philip Zelikow, an executive director of the commission, who was like this with Condoleezza Rice. He was part of the National Security Council of the Bush White House. He was on the Bush White House's transition team.
So this is part of the conspiracy?
It is a part of the conspiracy. Conspiracy is a legal term. So when we use the word conspiracy, it's a felony. It's a tenet of English common law. So you can't just say, oh, it's just a conspiracy. No, if it is a conspiracy, then that means an indictment. That means prosecution.
And who... Sound is driving.
How's sound? You all right? You can hear it?
Who exactly do you want to see put on trial for treason?
Dick Cheney.
And?
Richard Myers, head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff on 9/11.
Anybody else?
Jerome Hauer, the head of Giuliani's bioterror team.
That's it?
Well, you know what? Well, those three people are a good place to start, and perhaps in a legal proceeding, they have to be given immunity so that we can go and find out who was really calling the shots on 9/11.
But that's what you are about, right? You want to see...
I want to see an indictment. I want to see my Fifth Amendment right to due process of law be followed in this country. And if people have violated the law, and if I've got a case, and if I can make a case here in my Truth Over Treason campaign, that we've got scientific evidence here. It's not speculation, it's not opinion, it's not theory, but there's scientific evidence now of deep criminality inside that administration, then yeah, I do want due process of law. I want an indictment.
What's your... What's your reaction to the fact that John Patrick Bedell, the man who was just shot to death outside the Pentagon, held these beliefs about 9/11, was considered a truther?
I have not read anything about that. I don't have a comment on that. I don't know if he was a truther or not. I did read the news stories that original news stories had no allegations that he was a truther. However, so I really shouldn't comment on that. I don't have any information for you on that.
He has statements on the internet to that effect. Does that matter to you?
Well, in this country, I don't believe everything I see. I do research. I'm a journalist, and so I will not take the official story carte blanche. I think every American citizen at this point, after the JFK assassination, after the Martin Luther King assassination, has to stop and say, is what we're being told the truth, or do I need to do a little research, read books, newspapers, stuff on the internet, There's a wealth of information out there, and I think everybody, that we all have the light of truth in our hearts. We all need to figure out what is true and not take an official story right away as the gospel truth.
If this were a conspiracy, how many people do you think must have been involved?
It doesn't have to be a gigantic amount of people.
Really?
A lot of people, yeah. And the way U.S. intelligence works, there's compartmentalization. I know if I'm involved in the operation, I know a tiny little bit of the operation.
You think just a handful of people could be responsible for this event which
Well,
killed thousands of Americans?
This opinion is not based on theory. I just saw a pretty good presentation earlier today in which they have an ex-FBI counterterrorism official who says, yeah, you guys are onto something. If you look at the U.S. protection, CIA protection of Khalid al-Mihdhar and Nawaf al-Hazmi, this FBI guy says, yes, you guys are onto something here. And he actually says it's only 5 or 6 people up at Alex Station in the CIA who were protecting Khalid al-Mihdhar and Nawaf al-Hazmi, the 9/11 patsies.
At the end of the day, what you want is a treason trial.
That's correct. Due process of law. That's an all-American thing. That's why we've got the U.S. flag and the We the People preamble of the U.S. Constitution on our Truth Over Treason campaign. I've got 350 of these things printed. I'll tell you this, I had $170 in the bank. I spent 140 of it printing up 350 of these so I could come here today, giving a presentation tomorrow. It's an hour-long presentation. I've just given you a little gist of what I've got to say, but in my hour-long presentation tomorrow, it's going to climax with handing these out. And everybody here is called to fill this out and go back to their own local community and give this to a judge or an elected official or a prosecutor. Because there are laws on the books, Chris. Misprision of treason means that if you know that treason happened in your country, then you are compelled legally.
And you think somehow the American legal system missed it?
Absolutely. The American legal system has an element of corruption in it, don't you think? It's not pure. Nobody is pure. I'm not pure. The American system is not pure. There's corruption, but there's also some good people. I'm relying on that light of truth in your heart and in my heart to work, to influence your Fifth Amendment right to due process of law. That's all I'm asking for. All I'm asking for is the first ever real independent investigation of 9/11. The 9/11 Commission was a sham. The joint inquiry was blocked. So this is going to be good for the country. It's going to be cathartic. It's going to get us closer to the justice and the Bill of Rights that the Founding Fathers originally wrote out.
What's the penalty for treason?
The penalty for treason is not a slap on the wrist. It is pretty serious. The penalty for treason could be the death sentence. I'm a Christian and a Catholic. I personally don't endorse the death sentence, so I guess that's an ethical conundrum right there. But you're right, the penalty for treason is pretty harsh in this country. I think what I can take from that is that it's a serious crime. Treason is the only crime that the U.S. Constitution actually defines. That's how serious it is. And the primary definition of treason is to levy war against the United States. Levy war in the case law on treason is defined on to cause or compel the USA to go to war. I remind you, 9/11 caused us or compelled us to go into 2 illegal wars in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Perhaps because the United States was attacked.
Who are we attacked by? It's never been proven that Osama bin Laden. Osama bin Laden is not on the FBI's most wanted list for 9/11. Did you know that? You can call the FBI and they can say, well, we just don't have enough evidence to indict Osama. So you can, anybody that's watching your program right now can go on the internet.
I believe there's a $10 million reward.
But not for Osama bin Laden related to 9/11, for the embassy bombings of '98 in Khartoum and in Nairobi, not for 9/11. This is very interesting, and this is extremely compelling to people, because most people think Osama bin Laden did 9/11, those that believe the official story, right? But yet, the FBI's most wanted list, publicly available document online, you can see that Osama bin Laden is not actually wanted by the FBI for 9/11.
All right.